All right. Hello, everyone. It is the
Hello.
Drinker and MauLer. We're both
Surprise.
here. Yeah, but you didn't expect this after we did our Star Trek watch through. So,
Yeah, they've read the title, they know, but still surprise.
yeah, well, yeah, it's not that surprising, I guess. But yeah, we were on the lookout for things to cover next, and we like this idea of something that the other person introduces the other one to. So, we did Star Trek. MauLer wasn't too familiar with it, so he got a chance to experience the Star Trek movies. And once we finished that, we turned our eyes to what can we do next. And MauLer is a big fan of Firefly from back in the day. I never watched it, interestingly enough, and so this seemed like a perfect candidate. So what we're going to try and do is one episode at a time. We'll just make our way through the entire first season, because I think there was only 14?
Just the one. Yeah, 14 episodes. And then a movie,
and then a movie.
Fun.
Yeah, so I guess for a little bit of background, I didn't know a huge amount about this show. I knew it was particularly well regarded. I think at the time when it came out, it was like 2002. I was already watching like Farscape. I was already watching Stargate SG-1. And I just started uni. So I was kind of at uni during the day and then working in the evening. So I didn't have like a huge amount of spare time for new shows and stuff. And I think as a result, this one just kind of passed me by. I think maybe it just didn't quite, like the advertising for it didn't quite grab me or whatever. And then it was just gone. It was unfortunately cancelled after one season. And so that was kind of it for me. I never really got a chance to experience it. And there didn't seem much point in going back to a show that had already been taken off the air.
Yeah.
But it kind of seemed to develop this cult following over the years. And it seems to have gotten, a really good write-up from people. And so I guess I was always a little bit intrigued in the back of my mind, like, well, what was the fuss all about? What was Firefly? And this seemed like a great opportunity when MauLer finally suggested it. So here we are, almost a quarter of a century later, finally getting around to watching it. So it does take me a while.
It's kind of funny as a comparison too, because it really does feel like it's the equivalent of our sort of like there's a bit of a gap between our generations. Like this when it was coming out, I was probably similar, if not dependent. Like what age would you have been? When would you have been 10? Would any of I'm
when trying to remember you 10? So I would have been 10 in like 93.
So when was the last of the OG Star Trek movies coming out?
That was 91, I think.
Yeah, see, that feels like it matches up in the sense of just how we ended up with the passions that we did, right? It's very much to do with what's coming out at the time. Or unless you Gary, where you see everything that ever came out. And
yeah.
Because for me, like, Buffy and Angel was only because family members were already watching it. And then I was just like, yeah, I'll watch it. And then they picked up Firefly because of the connection to the creative team behind it. And then I was like, oh, this is cool too. And I remember, I think as a kid being like, how come there's like 7 Buffys and only the one Firefly? And it's like, oh, okay. Like, because meta information was just not available, at least not understandable to me. I was just like, oh, I guess they just didn't make more. Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if you had to theorize like why it didn't take off in the same way that Buffy did, like, do you have any suggestions?
Well, so it's pretty well recorded, I think. Like Fox almost sabotaged this in a lot of ways that I think Joss Whedon / the team behind it were very spiteful about, because it didn't give Firefly a chance. It was first of all, the pilot we're going to be watching today was aired, I think, as the 11th episode. So the reason was that Fox watched this episode and said it was too slowly paced. You need more action. You need to make a new pilot. Wow. So they made, funnily enough, episode 2, The Train Job, is the airing pilot, the one that they thought Fox did that would be better as a launch pad for the show, which I completely disagree.
But the pilot introduces all the characters.
Yeah, The Train Job tries to do similar things to this pilot. It's all a light pilot compared to this one. This one is very extensive in terms of not only establishing where everyone comes from, what they do, what purpose they serve, and what values they have. The Train Job is like a very quick version of that, and apparently Fox thought it was the better pilot.
That is baffling. God, I can understand the bitterness in that case, because the Train Job is a perfectly good episode, but it's just a little standalone episode for the most part. Like, it would be the sort of one, it's like, yeah, this is a fine way to do like a mid-season episode or whatever, just a little adventure that kind of carries the forward.
Yeah, it's the kind of episode you want just for seeing what would be considered the average adventure. It's not really the intro, I don't think, because I'm actually quite fond of the pilot, and I can understand their frustrations with having, they'd lost the ability to launch it that way. I'm pretty sure the whole season was aired out of order. It's got that thing about it, and then it was not put on a primetime, sort of like a good bracket for release, and then. Oh, there's other stuff to this. I remember knowing it a lot better back in the day, but I've come to sort of just settle, especially this far forward in time, that Firefly is over. It was really nice that we got what we got and that we should be thankful for it. Serenity is a very, very strong end to the story as a film. Okay. And they built the film knowing that it could both be the end and not, so they leave some things open or potentially moving forward, but at the same time, it seals everything up in terms of the points Firefly makes as an IP. So we, me and Gareth talked about this. We try and appreciate what we got. That's just the way it goes sometimes.
I mean, it's like with Farscape, we got the Peacekeeper Wars miniseries to wrap things up as well. And it's like, okay, we would have rather had a full season to do it. But, you take what you can get, because I'm just eternally grateful that they didn't end on that horrific cliffhanger when John and Aaron just got fucking vaporized. Like, that was horrific.
That's the thing, because I was watching Farscape at the same time, and I remember as a kid just being like, Farscape got loads of stuff. Firefly didn't. That's weird.
Yeah. I just, it was an interesting one, because obviously it's done in the premise of being a space western, and I think just from my hazy memories of like more than 20 years ago, it just, the commercials didn't really sell me on it. I think.
I don't even think they had strong marketing at all. I think that was another problem.
Yeah, I think I just looked at it and I was like, I don't quite get the aesthetics of it, and it all seems like a little bit quirky and weird. And
also, everyone in my high school hadn't heard of it. They didn't even know the show existed. Right. So I was just like, that's not good. Like that's actually that sucks. But it explains it, right? Because they had a huge campaign to get Serenity off the ground, and that film did not do well enough to justify furthering it. It was almost you could call it like a sense of the Fox were like, are people interested in this for real? And then they tested and they're like, no. But and I know this sounds a little copy, but from what I could tell, it wasn't that people weren't interested. It's that not enough people were exposed to it. Because of the people that were, a lot of people became very passionate about it.
Well, here we go then, right? I think you and I together, we can save Firefly. I think now, more than 20 years later, we will rekindle the spark for this one, and we'll get it going again.
Well, because the cast were quite young when they first made this, I think all of them are still alive except for some of the more obvious ones. I'm trying to remain vague on that because I don't want to, imply any character may or may not die, so that you get your tension. When you go through
because I mean, and full disclosure for anyone watching this, so I've seen the pilot and the first episode, or the second episode, should I say, so that I can prep for this, because I think that's the same thing that MauLer did when we watched the Star Trek movies, just so that I'm not asking really obvious questions that will end up getting answered later in the episode or whatever. So I think it made sense, and I've been impressed with what I've seen so far. I think it's probably best if we start watching and then we can start sharing our thoughts, I guess.
I am on board with that. This is this episode's called Serenity, right? I think episode 1.
It is,
for anybody out there who's even because there's some people who may watch it in airing order as opposed to release order, but yes, that is the first episode. It's like a double episode in one.
Yeah, it's a pretty hefty one, but I guess we'll just dive right in with episode 1. So if you're ready, if you've got your video.
I am, sir. Yeah.
All right. Well, for everyone at home who's still got their old DVD copy of this, get ready to fire it up. So we will start in 3, 2, 1, go. And this show
with an explosion.
It does, yeah. This show doesn't mess around.
Well, I was going to say, arguably, the entire show, part of the points they're going to be making is all based on this civil war that happened. So it's suitable it opens this way.
Yeah. And it's very cool, it seems like a show that had quite a bit of money spent on it.
I think they definitely wanted to make an impression. I know that obviously this was the experimental era of trying to combine the best use of practical and CG to get some fun interactions with that.
I was going to talk about that actually, because there's a lot of shots where I'm like, oh, this actually holds up not too bad, even by today's standards. Like, especially the space shots. There's The problem is when you have a spaceship interacting with like real landscapes where it starts to look a little bit hokey. It's like, okay, yeah. It was made in the early 2000s, I get you.
Yeah, no, I think people were quite impressed with the CG for this show because I don't think people were expecting a lot, especially TV show in the 2000s.
It won a Saturn Award apparently for best visual effects. So yeah, I guess people were fairly impressed by it.
Good for it.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. Like things like the weaponry and stuff. It's just straight up guns. Like they don't really try and disguise them and dress them up as laser guns or like super advanced space rifles or anything. They're just contemporary firearms as far as I can tell.
Yes, I think we do get reference to the nature of advanced technology weapons as the season goes further along. But this universe, a lot of people cite Firefly as the inspiration for a lot of shit that came after it for the combination of the nature of, the tech and the culture. Firefly is a very cool world. Like it's so tempting. Is anyone interested in sci-fi futures that are sort of different in whatever particular way? That this one was very like interesting immediately, especially Well, I was going to say, like, do you notice the random injections of Chinese?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, like occasionally, because Malcolm sometimes speaks it when maybe he doesn't want other people to hear what he's saying or know what he's saying, and I was like, where'd that come from?
I love everything behind it. So the idea is, culturally speaking, and I could be wrong on this. I'd have to recheck all of the lore to be specific. But the history of Earth is that every country got melded into either America or China. Essentially, that's what eventually happened. And so they're the two superpowers that united to create like the superpower that would be originating from Earth, and then they spread across the galaxy. You start getting an intro in this show that summarizes that every time as the sort of core lore behind the show.
So yeah, and they are the Alliance, aren't they? Who are essentially like the de facto government that controls everything. And then
also, by the way, like, I don't know if you spotted the Weyland Yutani logo on that.
I didn't actually. That's pretty cool.
Anybody wants to check, there's a Weyland Yutani logo there.
That is neat. But yeah, so this civil war, I guess, that we're seeing here, this was like the rebels trying to win independence from like the Alliance, as far as I understand, and they lost the war.
Yeah, the Alliance expanded across the galaxy and they sent colonists similar to the Alien universe. I think that's partly why there's a Weyland Yutani thing there. They go in, they terraform, and then it's their world, and then the Alliance decide what they want to do with that world. And a lot of cultures, as would definitely happen, would resist. They'd be like, we should be able to govern our own world, not you.
Yes.
And so they united, the rebellion sort of thing. And yeah, the opening of the show is they lose the Civil War.
And as I understand it, I think that's partly why like the technology level is so wild. Like, if you're in one of these like remote planets in the outer rim, you're not going to have access to like super advanced weapons and technology and stuff. It's much more basic because you're just like, you've got simple tools and weapons to try and make a go of it on this terraformed planet.
Yeah, and so that the history is sort of the justification of the changing in language casually, because everyone's relatively fluent in both, and then Joss Whedon's using it as he stated, for one, to give a sense that there are plenty of things that you don't understand the language of, but that you understand the tone of. Because if you notice it says speaking Chinese, it doesn't translate it for you.
Yes.
Like, that was deliberate. It's supposed to give you an idea of what they're saying, but simultaneously it actually does hide swear words.
Yeah, well, there's certain slang terms that they use here where I'm like, okay, that's clearly meant to be the...
Reminds you of Farscape, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say it's like Farscape, or like in Battlestar Galactica when they say frack instead of fuck. It's like, okay, we understand what you're doing.
They say Goram all the time in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the loss. And I think this scene that we just had very well captures Mal. High pressure situation, constantly trying to keep the morale up for his men, trying to encourage them, and simultaneously trying to solve problems as soon as they're presented. And still, no matter what he did, that he was basically told by his superiors, "We've lost. It's over."
Yeah, I fucking love Mal as a character. Like
I was going to say, it wouldn't take too long. Wouldn't take too long for you to love him. He's one of just everyone's favorite sci-fi characters.
He's he drops in, what as the sort of Joss Whedon style quips and stuff, but it's not overplayed, and like he's actually got quite a dark edge to him as well. Like he's quite willing to kill people, and he's not a shiny good guy by any measure, which I'm fine with. I really like it, and I think Nathan Fillion's portrayal is just great. Like he's got that real laconic attitude to him. It's a weird way. It reminds me of like Topper Harley in in the Hot Shots movies.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why. It's just like really laid back.
Well, Mal is one of the more fascinating characters to talk about because he's one of the most complex. I think he's got you'll find out more as the season goes on, but so many modes of operation that don't at all feel contradictory. I actually think that they sort of designed him that way from the core, being that he's this honorable fighter of a war that he thought he was on the right side of, and now he's a smuggling sort of criminal.
Yes.
And there's commentary on that in the first 2 episodes of like, that feels a little contradictory. And it's like, yeah, right. we're essentially honorable thieves, as best we could say it.
You definitely see it in episode 2 where it's like they've been hired to steal some packages from the Alliance, and then they find out it's medicine that's badly needed by colonists, and he's like, oh fuck, we can't take this.
Oh, there's some great lines that relate to that sort of mindset that he has. But I feel like the contradictory nature of his mind is something that they really try to keep going, right? Like how he approaches Indara, their companion, clearly disapproves of her job, but simultaneously is hyper protective of her and supports her.
She was a weird one, right? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around like the nature of what she does. So she's essentially she's a prostitute, but
yes,
they call her like
I think the closest
companion.
Yeah, the closest we get in our world to what she does is escorts, I think.
But like she seems to be accorded a lot of respect as well. Like
in this universe, she's a hyper high class equivalent of what we have for escorts. She's the like, as she says, I think she gets to choose her clients, so they can only ever request it, and then she high money and high.
Yeah, so she's almost like a courtesan in like a royal court or something like that.
Yeah, and you'll get episodes that really flesh out the context of what she does later on.
This, I think, is one of the moments where I realized like maybe they had to scrimp a little bit on production design. Where I see
it doesn't look.
Ship, and it's like, oh, even if you'd done the lighting slightly different to disguise some of that stuff, like you could have hidden some of those.
Well, it's what people tend to see as the biggest weakness of a lot of Joss Whedon projects is the way it's shot can often be very flat.
Yeah.
If anything, like, because I think the writing and performances and even the set design in Firefly is top notch, but sometimes it can feel like they could have done more with the way it's shot, making better use of perhaps lighting or angles, cinematography even. Though I wouldn't want to undermine, there's still plenty of shots I love in this.
Oh yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, like, because I don't know what they're going to do with space battles, but like it seems to be they're adhering to the like no sound in space rule.
It's curious. They do and don't. It depends on. It's a very custom thing. Most of the time it's silent, but sometimes you'll get, particularly in Serenity, they have sound in space, dependent on what kind of vibe they're going for. I actually think it's arguably the more nuanced choice, because ultimately I don't believe there's ever, say for example in Star Wars, sound in universe in space. As far as I'm concerned, it's sound for us, much like the soundtrack. Supposed to help us like have a particular experience. I don't mind. I don't think they've ever acknowledged in universe that the characters can hear what's going on in space.
Yeah.
And so in Firefly, it seems that they pick and choose depending on what kind of atmosphere they want to set. And obviously in this one, it's quite striking, the absolute silence in space.
Yeah, well, it's quite often accompanied by a heavy soundtrack, like Western style, music and stuff.
Which
and
again
like, is that just meant to be droning it out, perhaps?
Another combination that I think people felt was fresh when they first saw this, but again, not enough people saw this, so it just didn't kick off. Because you ask, I think you'll answer this way, but I certainly do, and Gary does. This show, it just feels like if enough people saw it, there's just no way it wouldn't be successful.
Well, I mean, I look at it now and like I'm torn between this idea of like, oh god, like if they were to either like continue this or remake it now, it'd be fantastic. But at the same time, I don't want them to, because there's things in it that I know they would never be able to get away with now.
I mean, I think I don't know if Joss Whedon's going to be able to make anything ever again, and I don't know that these projects without him are going to be anything like they were. It's he's got everyone recognizes his style of writing, and if you want to do it without him, it kind of creates a different show. And at that point, just make a different show inspired by Firefly if you want.
Yeah, it is a shame though, because people obviously bond with these characters, and
oh yeah. So I don't know if you know, but Nathan Fillion's on record saying this is his like favorite character to play in his whole career. He had the most fun with Mal.
Yeah, no, I like his style. He does.
I think it's just a character that he gets to explore so many aspects of. He's quite funny, quite charming, quite ruthless, quite scary, quite intimidating, quite assertive. Like there's This threw me for a loop at one point, man. Yeah.
When he's talking to the doctor, and like, the doctor's really concerned for Kaylee, who's been injured at that point. And we'll get to it, obviously. And he just stone dead just delivers the line like, "Nah, Kaylee's dead." And you see that slow motion shot of the doc like running towards the med bay to try and help her.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's just fucking with you, man.
And all the rest of the crew are laughing their ass off about it.
Yeah, but honestly, it got me as well, because I'm like, right, man, I really like that character. But she seemed exactly the kind of person who would get killed off early on. Just a really optimistic, nice person.
The halfway point of this pilot, I think, is some really fucking strong writing with her getting shot and how every character reacts to it. I also like this bit, by the way. This is our haul. He picks up a brick, turns it, and then while everyone's just having a chat, there's enough here to realize something's wrong.
Yeah, so it's stamped basically, so he can't.
He flips it immediately, and it's like, yeah, is there anything wrong? It's like, nah, it's fine. It's because he's hoping we can just slip it by. This won't be a problem, but it will.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the dynamic of enjoying Firefly, I think, is certainly on rewatches as well. It increases much more once you're familiar fully with all of these guys. But something I can't deny that I consider to be one of the most impressive for a TV show pilot is having 9 characters and to thoroughly explain to me exactly why they're valuable to this team, what their individual values are, and how they can clash so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I knew pretty quickly, like, all of these people come across as quite likable in their own way, partly like good acting and partly like they're all quite distinct personalities, but they all seem to like spark off each other quite nicely, but not in a way where it's just like, oh, we constantly need to manufacture conflict where everyone hates each other and shit. Like, it's actually quite a positive dynamic for the most part. Like, they definitely disagree on things, but like they come across as like quite likable people.
I think so, yeah.
Maybe not so much Jane. Like, he's kind of an asshole, but
Jane is the one that I actually think was super important for this dynamic, because if you look at the whole cast and their characteristics straight up, I think you'd easily categorize them all as good people. Jane is the one that's like, thank goodness we have someone who we're not sure if he's a good man,
Yeah, because there's a few times where he makes allusions to the fact, like, oh yeah, I would totally sell you guys out if I had the opportunity or whatever.
Well, I think you get a strong impression in these first 2 episodes that Mal has him because he's strong. And he can fuck people up when he needs someone to do that. But at the same time, he's got to keep a leash on him. And the fact that he acknowledges that he's pretty sure he's going to betray him.
Yeah. But I think that makes for a good, like, a sort of adversarial friendship. And I can imagine what his character arc's going to be. He's gradually going to become a better part of the team and, like, learn to trust them more, that sort of thing. Yeah, Wash that's her name, isn't it? Wash.
Well, his name is Wash, her name's Zoe.
Zoe, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm still getting to grips with her as a character. I like her, I think, but I think a lot of that's down to the actress just doing a really good job. Like, I don't feel like I know her too well yet.
I think
she's just kind of like a dependable second in command.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of mystery for her. She's a loyal first mate, fought in the war with him, and considers him the be-all and end-all of decision-making, but at the same time will offer him, a perspective that she thinks he's doing something wrong if she does. And she's also arguably like pretty good in a fight as well. So
yeah, she can hold her own. I mean, when they get into that barroom brawl in like episode 2, like she's kicking ass.
It was there's a lot of lines in these shows that I find particularly interesting, not just from a writing perspective of how effective I think they are, but also very real and accidental. Like, there's a lot of things you can say in a conversation that can make it go a direction you didn't actually necessarily mean. The fact that in a moment she says, the time it's flown by so fast, and he's like, yeah, you probably rig it to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay. You know,
I mean, like that dude just killed the buzz right there. Like,
yeah.
I was just looking at the actress as well because I know her from partly from the Deadpool movies and partly from is it Homeland?
Yeah, she was
Yeah, I
in
think it's
Homeland.
Yeah, and it's like she is so fucking young here. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there it is.
There you go. I don't think that's her fault. I think she was like obviously trying to flatter him, like, "Oh man, I've been having so much fun with you."
No, yeah, and I actually think that the line, it could be just the result of someone who awkwardly was trying to say something kind of fun, but simultaneously also felt that he should have had more time. And then once it's said, it's like, well, that's said, I better leave. Like it's too awkward here now.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, clue me in a little bit. So, does she just travel from planet to planet? So she offers her services to people, but she's also kind of attached to, like,
yeah, it's like renting an apartment on the ship,
right?
Because it's easy. It's like cheaper travel for her overall if she sticks with them because they go to all different kinds of planets. If she knows where they're going ahead of time, she can contact people there and see if there's someone who wants a companionship, I guess, as a
companionship.
Yeah, well, the reason I choose the word is because sometimes it's not just like sex; it's other stuff like going to places or even talking to people. It'll depend. Like I said, they do flesh it out a bit more as time goes on.
Right.
Well, and as you know, like Mal is basically completely unimpressed with her job. But
yeah, well, so's the preacher. Like this shot here, like that must have cost a fortune. Like there's a couple of hundred extras there.
Yeah.
All the set design, all the costumes, everything. Like, that's some good stuff. I was looking at that thinking, yeah, nice one.
This is the big yeah, it's the big regret of Firefly is a lot of people are just like, I want to see more of this world. And it's like, well, you can't.
This is why we can't have nice things.
I think you get
we got the Acolyte, so swing some.
You got some third party stuff, I think, as well as comics. So there's more to sort of enjoy. But obviously, people I think were wanting this format.
Yeah, it's just neat. I mean, it's like westerns are cool. Space adventures are cool. Let's just merge them together into one genre. Cool.
It feels unapologetic. Some of the stuff, it's so overt. Just like, yeah, well, you like it, we like it. Fuck it. It's like, yeah.
You can. I get the impression that a lot of thought was put into just making this a fleshed out world. Like even the little bits that I've seen of like the Alliance officers and how they operate and how they make decisions. It's like, I get what these guys do. Like they prioritize missions based on like resources and so on and how much need there is. And it makes sense. Like they don't waste resources following up every little minor crime that happens. It's like, local planetary fucking law enforcement can deal with that. That's good. Like, it's just simple but effective world building.
Well, and then you get that they know like rubes or anything. Like Mal seems to have enough awareness, and I really like the again, all this stuff needs to be in the pilot. We need Badger here to give his perspective on Mal being like, you're a fucking goody two shoes man pretending to be a criminal.
Yeah,
like you're not one of us. Like this is bullshit. And there's a lot of truth to that with Mal. This actor was in like all of Supernatural, I think. I forget his name.
But, he looks familiar, yeah.
Always like it when he shows up. He's good shit. Love his hat.
Yeah, I like his hat as well. Yeah, he looks like some early 20th century like gang member from Ireland or something.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine said a lot of the characters when they were first watching this, it felt like it was a Fallout sort of experience.
Just such an eclectic mix of like fashions and technologies and language and everything. It's all just melded together into this crazy world.
Very satisfying for the mind, I think, because you just be like, oh, I guess it could end up that way. I love this little look as well. Yeah. Why the fuck didn't you tell me this, Captain?
Yeah. Because that could really drive a rift between, a captain and his first officer. Like, hey, you're supposed to trust me with this information. Like, I'm risking my life as well with this shit.
Oh, so that's the thing. They're so closely connected. I could imagine part of the look is like, again, like you always do this shit where you try to let us think the job is working better than it actually is.
Yeah.
And then Jane kind of escalating.
Oh yeah, he's a blunt instrument, that guy.
Because I think a lot of people could assume like, oh, this feels a bit exposition, and it's like, no, the point he's making is he doesn't want to deal with him.
Yeah, well, he's just trying to push him as well, isn't he? Trying to provoke him a little bit, mocking
Sure,
him. You
with
guys
that, but
lost.
still, overall, you're like, a step away from being a lawman. Like, what are you doing here? And see that look he's got, how he's playing it, and then he's like, soften up a bit, because it's probably not a fight you can win if you actually had it. Play with him a
just
little
that
bit.
subtle mockery as well. Nice hat. That was a nice line. I like that line. Very apt.
Yeah, I mean, the further in you are, the less you notice the turd, I guess.
Yeah. It's like low lifes like you who are desperate. Like, yeah, you're the ones that are going to feel it the worst. So this guy, I'm a little bit not confused by it, but I've said I don't quite know how he fits into it and what his backstory is because I'm only 2 episodes in, so I don't know much about him yet.
Yes, what I could say is there's a lot of questions surrounding him. Why does he have so much knowledge of a lot of things that seem well outside of his purview?
Yeah.
And that we'll get more on that as time goes on. There's going to be a decent amount of intrigue. Obviously, the big intrigue is what is happening with the doctor and his sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously we'll get to see them soon enough. I like
Classic
this. I like
TV show stuff.
Yeah. I like Kaylee as well. I think part of it's down to the actress. Like, she just seems really like bright and happy and cheerful.
Yeah, super bubbly and
yeah.
just willing to help out everybody. The kind of character that often fucking suffers.
That's exactly, yeah. And that's why when she got shot, I was like, oh shit! Like, I'd feel actually quite bad if they killed her off so soon in the show.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but I also love as well that these are strawberries, right? Yeah, so it's just like that's already enough to say, like, yeah, you could go.
Well, again, perhaps does that tell you a little bit about this world where like simple things like fruit are just really hard to come by and like they're like luxury items?
Yeah, probably not that you can't get them, but more so that they don't typically get them because those would be luxury.
Yeah.
Because obviously part of, I think it's a good decision generally, but something they want to keep going is that these guys are on the edge of destruction a lot. Very low budget for their ship.
Yeah. Yeah, because essentially their goal is just like, pick up the next fare, take on the next mission, just to scrape together enough money to keep our ship running so we can do the same thing again.
Yeah, and I think episode 2 gives us a really good context for why Mal cannot do all jobs. He'd like to claim he can, and hence why he doesn't want to know what the cargo is, because it makes it easier, but there's going to be decisions he makes in a lot of these missions that are not going to be great for the team.
Yeah. Like that. Well, she shot me a bit.
Yeah, the Reavers as a force is well built, I think, in this episode too.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you don't see them directly, but it's like you get to see the ship pass close by.
They with just the use of everyone's opinions and reactions to the notion of them starts to create an atmosphere around them that we don't even need to see them necessarily, right?
Well, yeah, I think because there's a moment where you see Jane loading up his gun and his hand's shaking a little bit. It's like, if this guy's bricking it at the prospect of taking on these guys, like, yeah, there must be something pretty like horrific there. What an intro for the doc.
Well, it's
Yeah,
so
it's
nuts
cool.
because it's like another character, and you're like, this isn't even the end. There's still another one.
Yeah. But again, like, Farscape did the same thing, balancing a pretty big ensemble cast of characters that all had really unique personalities, and you got to know them really quickly.
Well, so it's what's insane to me is we're always, whenever someone says like, we've only had one episode or two with a character, should we really know them yet? Doctor Who's having this fucking problem with the new Doctor and the new companion. I don't know anything about them really, and it's been nearly a whole season. Meanwhile, here I feel like I know all of these people pretty well, and it's one episode.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing what you could do with really good, efficient writing?
You just need them. Every last line needs to be comporting with what we understand to be them, and then they need to have just a handful of choices that are kind of difficult.
Yeah. I think it's great. Like, imagine that. Like, in the 20 years ago, we were able to create a show with 9 likable, interesting characters. Now we struggle to create a show with one interesting character.
That is outright being spoiled, is how I see it now. It's this Once Upon a Time, I would have just watched it, been like, oh, what a neat normal show. But in retrospect, I realize maybe I was not being kind enough.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a golden age, I suppose, for TV. It's funny as well, because when I look at this, I can sort of picture if they tried to make this now, like, say you didn't have Whedon on board, and it was just done in today's environment, I just know how different these characters would be.
Oh yeah, they'd be a lot more hollow. The cast would be entirely different. The histories would be a lot more boring.
Yeah, and I know which ones would always be portrayed in a positive light and which ones would be idiots. And like,
and the challenges for them, we would have so few because I don't know, writers just don't have as many balls these days. Like, to have her shot, as you mentioned, was shocking, and it's like, yeah, it's a ballsy move to do something like that in your first episode. There's a couple of things like that. Joss is always, and Mutant Enemy, to be fair, liked being a bit subversive. Anything that you thought as an audience member, like, oh, so this happens next, they'd be like, can we find a way to make that different but also fun?
Yeah, and keep it consistent with what we've kind of told you about these characters, this world.
Yeah, and experiments can fail. It's just that I think that these shows get remembered better than, let's say, fucking Echo, who's
I've crapped out things that will be better remembered than Echo, man.
Does anyone picture in 20 years that there will be two friends who one of them says, I got to show you Echo, you got to see Echo? It's like, is that actually going to happen? You'd be like, well, surely one person. You're like, I don't even know if there'll be one.
Maybe with an enemy, it's like, I'm going to force you to watch Echo. And you're not getting out of this room until you've seen the whole season.
This is actually really fun in retrospect. This whole, so they've got to do essentially the equivalent of a bandit run, selling off supplies they've stolen. And then they're trying to explain that in a positive, like, we're delivering shit for the Alliance way to these characters, who one of them is Alliance, trying to hunt down Simon. And Simon is trying to say, like, that seems weird. Like, you're delivering medical supplies for the Alliance? Like, why? What? And it's like, he shouldn't even really be questioning them because he's on the run, but it's just, he's a doctor. He's like, that sounds odd.
Yeah. And then he has Malcolm has to try and balance this. Like, they sometimes commandeer our ship. What can we do?
He doesn't know about all of this. He's just like, why are people being difficult? Why can't you just fucking listen to what I said? But it also gives us access to some more information, of course. And it's a nice bit of conflict because we know that Malcolm's lying.
Yep. It's funny as well because, like, the bars that you see in the case, they you might assume that they're a precious mineral or something like that, and it's like they're just food. That's all it is.
Well, he says one brick could feed a family for a month, and then he said for longer if you're not particularly fond of the kids.
Yeah, it's a pretty good line.
Oh yeah, the jokingly referring to her as ambassador of book takes it seriously.
Yeah. I love how he just throws that in.
Yep. Yeah.
Again, like, no fucking way would you get away with a line like that.
No, you wouldn't. And I think it's something to respect. He treats that description as very important. He's like, I don't approve of what you do. It's wrong. But like not wrong enough that he can't deal with it. That's what I mean. He's a man of contradictions.
Well, I guess he's, I don't know, is he one of those guys? It's like, I can save you, you know. Come with
Yeah,
me.
I think so. Somewhat. He's definitely interested in her. You can tell. And this dynamic is super interesting, right? It's like Mal, if you remember, he kisses a cross necklace he has in the prologue, and then
yeah, but he's totally not religious. No.
well, that's the thing now. It's they're like, do you have a problem with a shepherd being on board? And then he's like, no. And it's like, why would you even ask him that? And it's like, well, because he's lost his faith somewhat.
Well, yeah, and it's like when they're having dinner together, like Book is like, "Do you mind if I say grace?" And it's like, "Well, if you say it out loud, you know,
Yeah, that's
want to hear that shit."
Well, and I think in episode 2 he says, "You're welcome on the ship. God isn't."
Yeah, that actress must have had a right challenging time eating that without making it seem extremely sensual.
Oh, I'll be honest with you, dude, they probably looked for the most sensual take. They were allowed to back in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. Dinner scenes, they are very reliable for conflict. They always are.
Yeah.
But yeah, is having a shepherd on board a problem? That I think Mal saw that as kind of annoying to ask him, so it exposes a bit of a weakness. So he enjoyed later asking, "Is having a companion aboard a problem for you?"
Yes.
You know, the shepherd being like,
"Yeah, everyone's got their vulnerabilities, I suppose."
That's what government's
like
good for.
the great thing about dinner scenes is like it forces everyone to be together in a certain area, you know, where they have to carry on some sort of conversation while they eat.
And there's always a conflict of comfort for everybody as well, which is to make use of. Jane is super comfortable here, so he doesn't realize that some of the stuff he's going to say is going to have a lot more weight than he expects. Mal is put on edge, so he's kind of angry. A lot of people are just trying to make this work. Everyone's motivations, like there's, as you said, everyone getting brought together. So now we got to have some chats.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about the Chinese thing. Like a lot of them are eating with chopsticks, which I hadn't picked up on the first time.
Clash of cultures, and they don't make a big deal out of it, I guess, is what I like too. It's because I think it needs to be treated as though it's completely normal to them. Nothing about it is strange.
Yeah.
It's the thing we talk about. It's the sincerity, treating the world you've created as though it is a world, not a crazy thing that you've got going. Like everyone being like, I'm eating with freaking chopsticks.
That's the thing that happened.
Yeah, this is another great example of Mal's character. It's like warning him, and then he counters, and then it's like, I'm the captain. You can fucking leave.
Yeah.
It's the presence Nathan Fillion has, and it's why Mal is so easy to like, is you love this assertiveness. I've talked before with you several times, as you've mentioned as well. Just fucking love a character with a backbone and is intelligent.
Yeah.
You don't get many of them these days.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, that's because like at one point, does he not have that out with Inara? I think it's in this episode actually, where she tries to tell him like, you know,
yes.
it's we have to help this person or whatever. And he just says like, don't ever tell me what to do on my own ship. Like this guy doesn't take any shit.
So I mean, you'll get to know him better and better. There's a hierarchy of thought and value he has, and it just you feel like you grasp it naturally as time goes on. Does not like getting told, you know, what to do by anyone. However, again, he will value his crewmates, you know, above the average person, but he still has a hierarchy on that too.
Yeah,
you could tell like he doesn't put Jane above anyone else. Because I do like there's a notion in, I think it's episode 2, where he seems out of place. The the shepherd, and then in a weird way, he's like, actually, I guess this is kind of the perfect place, as in the people here kind of need someone like me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I quite enjoy this just like fairly subtle verbal sparring that they do. Where it's not like, he's not like filled with rage or anything like, oh, you fucking disgusting person. But it's just like, no, I've got a different perspective on this than you, and I feel like I can win you over. And they're both just they're feeling each other out, I think. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, and then just letting us know that she's quite interested in Mal because of his contradictions, or what seem like contradictions. The efforts he puts into defending and taking care of a crew that he doesn't like. A lot of them, anyway.
Pretty Spartan quarters right there.
Well, I even like the fact that we had that combo like toilet sink situation that looks a little higher tech in the sense of being able to keep it all compact, but it also looks super worn.
Yeah,
just old.
There's been a lot of shit going on in that toilet.
Yep.
Like this obviously goes to the sort of school of very clunky sort of alien style technology, like from the movie Alien, where everything is very like analog and simplistic.
There's another,
and I quite like it,
enjoyable element of he's told there's a mole out of all the characters, and he's like, I know,
straight for the doctor.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
And not from other guy who's mysteriously said very little throughout this whole journey so far.
And again, with the dynamics at play, he's like, shit, this guy's gonna fuck us over. And then Mal realizes, oh, he's after the doctor because the doctor's actually a fucking outlaw. Oh, that's great. And then the guy's like, no, I'm taking you in too. And he's like, oh, we're back to...
Yeah. Like, see this look on his face here, like, oh, you're after him. Cool.
It's a reward.
Yeah.
A back birth.
I don't even have words for that one.
Yeah, and see the Mal's gone back to like, okay, then I have to deal with you.
Yeah. Well, there it goes. Damn.
It's just really well done. The tension rising, people getting closer to each other, and this that gun is just waiting to go off.
You just knew that like someone was going to get in the way of it.
And see, they're not missing any chances to create more conflict than the primary conflict. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, like Jane is like single-minded with this one. I'm going to kill that son of a bitch right now.
And then it's just another character like, you're not killing the fucking priest. That's not happening.
Well, interesting that she's willing to draw a weapon on him. Like,
that's the thing. I don't think Jane has a huge amount of stock in this group. Everyone recognizes what kind of man he is. Obviously, if Mal had pulled a gun on the shepherd, she would not have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really love this kind of writing. Simon realizing he has leverage here. And he's going to have to use it to save his sister.
Yep.
And it's not nice, but it's you know, it's what I mean. It tells you about these people.
And I think he is quite invested in helping her as well. Like you could tell he was going to help her before this was the scenario.
And Mal's even trying to use the fact that he knows he would help her, but like, why take the bluff? Like,
yeah.
I love that too. He's in a war. He knows exactly what a stomach wound does.
Yeah. Wasn't that just simple things like that camera work there, like panning over from the first officer to him, and then the focus then shifts to Mal. Just like that neat movement.
Yeah.
Just to
this is what I mean.
The debate going on, like, oh, it's nice.
Still playing the compliment, and you could tell from that as well. He fucking hates Simon now because it's forced him into a decision. He never likes that sort of situation. But the thing is, I think as the audience, we can recognize we may have done something like that if we were the Doctor.
Well, I mean,
if you understand the situation,
he's got to like look after his sister ultimately, so he doesn't know these people all that well. You've got that double layered. I do want to help these people, but at the same time, I need to parlay my position into, something that can actually get me a good result here.
There's just, there's never not going to be a use for a doctor in a TV show like this. Easy to get wounds going, and then you got your mechanic, you're essentially your merc, first mate, captain, companion. You've even got a crazy lady as the last character to be added in.
Yeah, like obviously I don't know much about her yet. Like from what we understand, she's like super intelligent. She was put into this academy when she was experimented on. He rescued her, and that's all we got. She's a little bit mental now. I presume she's got some kind of like power or ability that's going to come into play later in the series.
I really like this move. It feels like Mal wants some leverage back. It's like, so I can look at what you're carrying and it changes nothing. So I'm gonna.
Yeah. It's lucky it doesn't have like a deadly pathogen in there or something, like just instantly kills them all.
That's the thing, right? If he had shouted that, I guess they probably would have thought twice. But it would be such a weird thing. Like, I'm carrying like the Ebola virus. You'd be like, what? Why? Yeah, definitely a what the fuck?
Such a great reaction from Mal there. Just, huh.
So I mean, I think he's one of the best actors for showing how much he can very easily switch between aggressive and almost comedic, which arguably is the perfect kind of actor to have for a Mutant Enemy Joss Whedon project.
Yep.
And yeah, what he assumes is, I think, what a lot of us probably would assume. It's like, this is your little sex toy, is it? You fucking weirdo. That's the Summer Glau is the actress who ended up being the Terminator in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, right?
I mean, if you say so. Yeah, I never really watched the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Neither did I. I just know that it happened. And I think people think highly of it compared to, Genesis
everything
and
else.
Yeah, even I think Terminator 3 is seen as worse than it. So, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
As if things weren't complicated enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've still got the Alliance guy captured, haven't they?
This is quite a good intro for her, actually. Like, basically him laying out, like, yeah, I'm smart as fuck already, like, top of my class and everything. And yeah, I'm still an idiot compared to her.
Well, yeah, this is the intrigue. It's like the government captured her and did something with her. What though, and why?
Yeah. Because they really want her back, as we find out later.
Yes, the spooky agents, who we'll be seeing more of.
There's so many elements of this, like just 2 episodes in, and I'm like, oh god, there's like 9 different characters who are all pretty likable and interesting by themselves, an overarching plot with a lot of mystery elements. There's plenty of action, a cool sort of Western space sci-fi setting.
Well, so I mean, in your
there's
opinion,
just so much...
what do you think of the pacing of this? Because Fox decided this was too slow to put as a pilot.
Oh man, I hate Fox. Like, we started with a big battle scene. We've had plenty of intrigue. We've worked in 9 different characters now, and we're at the 45-minute mark, and all of them are pretty fleshed out already. So we've got a good sense of who everyone is, and there's been a few action scenes in between already.
Well, and we're similar to Farscape with the overall goal of stay on the run. We've got people after us, make money enough to survive.
I mean, maybe like their issue was like, oh, okay, there's not like a pressing, urgent moment, right? Like at a moment like this, like there's a fair bit of exposition going on here, but it's like kind of necessary just to set up who this person is. Well,
we just got like a couple of scenes there that were pretty high tension and revelatory, so it feels like we earn a slower scene, at least for now.
Yeah, like you let the audience catch their breath, and if there's constant tension and constant action, it just becomes exhausting. You can't have that. So this is I'm curious about. I don't know if we get this fleshed out a bit more, like this underground movement that contacted him.
There's gonna be, as the episodes go by, a lot of things that you can tell as someone who's seen a lot of TV. You'll be like, oh, they're definitely leading to something with that. And I would argue, I think by the time you finish the whole set of information, you get about 80% of it completed. But there are a couple of things, and you can tell there's a line in Serenity regarding one of the threads that a character is like, how come, we never really got to find out what that was? And the other one is like, you never will.
Okay.
It's because they simply didn't have the time. I think the initial script for the movie, Joss Whedon tried to answer and close up everything, and it was too much.
Yeah. This is such a shame, right? Because I've shat on Joss Whedon myself in my time.
We all have, deservedly, to him. He's,
Yeah, and I guess the things we found out about him, he's maybe a bit of a shithead in real life. But like in terms of his writing and so on, it's like I think he gets a lot of unfair flack for like essentially turning the MCU into just a goofy comedy series with no stakes and stuff. Whereas I think, as you pointed out, like that's a lot of the time people tried to imitate his style rather than himself. And then when you see things like this, it's like, no, he's actually able to balance the dramatic and the serious with the sort of quirky, humorous, witty repartee. And do it really well. It's just like maybe when there's outside forces acting on him, or people are trying to just do what he did but worse. That's when he gets
there's some
unfair reputation.
This dynamism we have right now, right? There's been several comments from Jane and Mal that basically we're going to execute some of these people, and then you have Book and Wash, who are both like, you are insane. Like, there's no way we're just going to execute people. That's so wrong. And then Wash saying, I feel like this is no longer you just choose everything you do on your ship. Like, we've been here long enough that our opinions should matter, which is fun considering it's the first episode for us, that we get to, they fast forward us to this dynamic being probably the most interesting. And I guess what I'm saying is we're so early on, and yet we have a whole scene here that's reminiscent of, I think, some of the better scenes that he made in stuff like the MCU, right? Like the big clashing scenes. You remember the scene in Avengers before everything goes to hell in the second act, where you have Fury and Thor, Iron Man, Cap, Black Widow, they're all clashing.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just standard stuff we all like watching versus a show where you can't even fucking tell the difference between most characters, and most of what they talk about is expository / padded. Like, look at Ahsoka is a good example.
Yeah.
Our crew in Ahsoka was the robot Ahsoka, Sabine, and sometimes that other girl, and none of them had interesting things to say to each other ever.
That's the problem, isn't it? Like when you're waiting for a character to make some really insightful observation or just say something really cool, and it just never happens, and you realize, okay, the writers just don't have it in them. This is just going to be like good actors desperately trying to carry a horrible script.
And and I'll always advocate, I'll take an overdose of wit over no wit. It can be annoying.
I just want to feel like the writers tried to do something.
Yeah, yeah. I would rather them fail to try to do something than to not do anything. Like Dynamics, again, is a really great example. Mal knows that Jane's a bit unhinged, and that should actually work in his favor as a threat. At the same time, don't kill him. Threatening, and he's like, Paid is threatening, Paid is scary. It's like, yeah, he'll leave him to it. Like, there's a chance he would go too far, but ultimately Mal is not opposed to that, I don't think.
No, well, he's definitely willing to execute people. Well, as you see in episode 2, actually, put someone straight into a jet engine.
Oh, dude, I love those payoffs. But this is another good one as far as I'm concerned, right? Jane may be a bit of a meathead, a bit ruthless, a bit selfish, but at the same time, this is actually something he has experience in, torturing somebody for information, interrogating, and the fact that he's like, so what information do they have on us? And he's like, they have everything down to the last hair fiber. And his reaction is just like, oh, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
You're full of shit.
Yeah.
And he's also annoyed, not just the fact that was such a crap lie, but that he doesn't get to torture him now because he's got all he needs.
Yeah. Yeah, actually looks really put out about that. I was going to get me an ear.
Didn't they teach you how to do this? Like, and this is the other thing. It's like you'd expect with the dynamics of all the characters, like, oh, so Jane's going to be the one we all don't like. And it's like, no, it's not quite that easy.
No, again, like he's quite funny in his own way, and I don't imagine he's a completely horrible person. He's just much more ruthless and
you need
than some people.
I think you need that for us to believe him. I can believe anyone could end up this way, where they're mostly a member of the crew, but they're simultaneously realistic about the world. And he's obviously had a history where things were not easy.
Yeah, I mean, like in Farscape, God, you had like Chiana, you had Rigel, like they were both fairly self-centered characters who were totally out for themselves at various times. This, I didn't... when we talk about the special effects and stuff, like, and the space elements, like, this bit I didn't love. Just the fact that the two ships pass within, like, a few hundred yards of each other.
Mm-hmm.
In the unimaginable vastness of space. Like, really?
It felt weird. Like, there's... It's obviously a setup, right? Because it's going to be for the stuff for later, and this is just to give you some tension, even though it doesn't amount to anything yet.
Yeah,
but no, I understand. Yeah.
So the Reavers, because he mentions there that like they're running without any shielding on their reactor core, so essentially they're getting lethal doses of radiation while they're just traveling through space, and they just don't give a shit.
Yes, there's the Reavers. You'll get more as time goes on. I would like, I don't consider it too spoilery to say that you'll get the full story for what the Reavers, what their thing is.
Right.
But enjoy the time you have of them being more distant and vague, because I've always enjoyed that, especially if the answers you get to what they are is satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just got this enormous collection of guns there. That's interesting as well. Like, you've just got to kind of play dumb with them. Like, if you try and run immediately, they'll chase you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just cruise by and hope for the best,
it's a staple of. I mean, I think Star Trek has this to somewhat degree, right? But like, this ship is transport only; they don't have weaponry, and so like that's not just the nature of the ship itself, but also like a conscious choice for the nature of smuggling. It's suspicious if they had a cannon on there for the Firefly class and stuff. So it's like, they're not great at dealing with threats in space. which again I assume is deliberate along with everything else. Like they try to, somewhat nerf our main characters so that tension can always come up.
Well, they've got to be more resourceful then. Like they don't
Yeah.
just have this big arsenal of weaponry they can call upon. Like, no, we've got to get more creative with this. It's like in I don't know if you got that far, but it's like in Red Dwarf where they're stuck on Starbug. And it's like they don't really have any weapons on that either, so they have to like launch trash cans full of nitroglycerine at enemies and stuff.
Oh yeah, I assume that's a suicide option.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting though? Like that tells you a lot. Like,
Yep.
these people would much rather just take their own lives than get captured by the Reavers. I just can't look at that actor without thinking of Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball.
No, yeah, it's kind of funny. He's such an accomplished actor as far as I'm concerned. He's in so many things and he does such a good job wherever he turns up. I feel like he never quite has reached the appreciation levels he should have. Some actors get to have that role that they do and then everyone goes, they're great.
Yeah.
I feel like he hasn't quite gotten it yet. He's got plenty of roles that people recognize him for, but none that I think that he deserves to have gotten a bit higher for. Someone referenced this, and I was thinking about it. Like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash. It felt like that was the time where now he's been elevated and everyone recognizes he's a fucking great actor. It's like, that's cool. And that there are other actors that deserve that sort of thing to have happen.
Yeah, I mean, Walton Goggins, whether you liked Fallout or not, like that, I feel like that's the show that's kind of put him
it's
on the map.
It's helped people say, like, he's actually pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Walton fucking Goggins.
I'll say that about there's some actors in like House of the Dragon that before House of the Dragon I didn't care about them. I think Olivia Cook is one of them. I knew her from Ready Player One, and I was like, she exists. And then after watching the show, I was like, okay, she's actually really good.
Yeah,
certainly for fucking Paddy Considine.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, like I had a lot of love for Paddy Considine anyway, but yeah, that show really demanded a lot from him.
That's what I mean, though. He goes from being the funny one who's in a lot of things I enjoy to he's just a fabulous actor. If he's in anything, I'll be happy. Yeah, it was tough doing Viserys, and he nailed it.
It's funny because you think like there's so many actors who don't get that role, like Viserys, and who are like perhaps chomping at the bit to do something more demanding and more interesting, and they just never get the opportunity.
Dude, it's something I've never understood because of stuff like we've referenced Ahsoka and a lot of the Star Wars and Marvel shows. Like a lot of the actors never get put through the ringer. They never have to do the scene where they have to actually put a lot of effort in. I would even say with what we've seen so far of this show that a lot of the actors had to do things not hyper difficult, but certainly stressful. Like Mal has had a whole range of emotions he's had to nail.
Yeah. I'd like this is going to sound strange, but it's like actors generally relish that opportunity to like have their characters suffer or be put through the emotional ringer, like you say, like because it gives them a real chance to stretch their.
Well, they'll read it in the script and probably be like, "Whoa, that one's going to be tough." And on the day, they'll be like revving themselves up. It's like, "This is the one. I can do this. I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you on the whole, like, they could have killed her here, and it would have been really sad as a, opening to the series that they lost a crew member.
Yeah. Because that's like, if you're going to do a show like this, and you want to, like, really change the pace and be like, okay, we're not fucking around now. Like, the good people who perhaps deserve to survive don't. Like, this is a place where nobody's safe. And that would be a good way of demonstrating it. But, like, they go a different path with this. But, again, it's quite... I don't know. It just shows their very irreverent humor here.
This back and forth, I think it's very much not explicit, and maybe I'm looking too far into it, but she says, is there anything else we can do? Kaylee is very important to us. I think she's offering, so to speak, companion services. And instead of saying no to that, he goes immediately to, you understand, like, I didn't want to do it this way. I didn't want to like use Kaylee's health as leverage. That's not at all who I am.
Yeah.
Like
it's a great thing to show about him, really, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not even entertaining the offer from her because he's like, no, that doesn't work on me. That's not how it works.
It's kind of like what I'm interested in is like keeping my sister safe and preferably myself as well. Like that's it. I don't need gratification like that or anything. I'm not like that selfish. It's just I'm sorry I've been obliged to do this.
And yeah, I see Mal's deception here is just a result of how he absolutely hates being forced into someone else's decision, which is what happened with this guy. But it's difficult for him again because Simon has shown he has integrity. So it's like, I can't quite fully hate you.
Well, it's a good way of him testing out the guy's reaction as well. Like, okay,
Yeah.
how much do you care about this person? Because once I know that you really do care about her, I know you're going to do whatever you can to save her, regardless of whether I cooperate with you.
And again, the delivery, look at that. Completely
good,
sincere.
yeah. And like I say, when I watched this the first time, I was 100% like, oh shit, like she really is gone. Damn, that sucks.
Yeah, and he's like obviously kind of distraught. That's not what he thought was happening with her.
Got the sad music, got the slow-mo shots. It's everything you need.
Regular speed, and she's fine.
I love the little wave.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what's going on.
That's brilliant. So few shows would have the balls to do something like that and actually make it work as well.
Yeah. Oh, I enjoy this. This back and forth is fun. That the fact that she doesn't haggle means that she has no intention to pay.
Yeah,
that's a really cool sort of good I think bit of intelligent writing.
Yeah.
And I like as well that, you know, he's so agreeable in the conversation, but once it's over and the other characters have noticed that it's not quite right, he's just angry. Like, he's already ahead of it, you know?
Yeah. Intelligent character writing. That was nice. I remember when
this is what I mean. Is, I wish we could say that it were normal, and then we have the great, which is when it's like non-stop, insightful, intelligent, subtextual. But it's just, it feels like the scale gets decayed when you watch something like this in between watching The Acolyte and something else, and it's just like, Jesus.
It is funny because the budget for The Acolyte was probably like 5 times what they spent on this.
Oh god, the way they do it right within Godzilla minus ones. That's how you calculate.
This cost 16 Godzilla minus ones.
You should be embarrassed.
That should honestly be our scale. Like, you know, in South Park, how they use Kuriks as like the scale for turds, like how big it is. Oh, that was 17 Kuriks. Wow. That's going to be it for like a really low budgeted movie that's amazing. Like,
proactive.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I think they're deliberate in wearing him thinner and thinner across the episode, Mal, until he entering the ship when the situation is happening, and he makes a snap decision instantly that ends their problem. Yeah. It's so awesome as representative of, he's just like, I am very tired of everything going wrong.
I like this as well. You know, it's we want to get back into Western mode, so it's like, yeah, we're going to land on a desert planet, and here we are.
Yeah,
it's West now.
It's also like you know, like because they have the horses and the rifles. It's just like, yeah, we just want to play around. Let us have it for a bit. You're like, it's okay.
I'm all right with it. You've earned it. And like, yeah, he's totally scoped out where the snipers are going to be and what the ambush is going to be like.
Yeah, he's well ahead of Patience, but at the same time, you can tell he's so desperate to be like, let's just have the deal. Can we just have the deal? Like, really, come on. It's a win-win, and I think she says, like, if ever I can conduct a deal without losing any money, I will. It's just a good bit of conflict in any show of an exchange of money for goods. It's always a bit of a like.
Well, you can build the tension up as much as you want there, like, and everyone's got a plan, and everyone thinks they've got one over on the other person. It's you can take it as far as you want, really, can't you? I really like the fact that she still calls him sir.
No, I really appreciate her as the. She's very much in support of him. Like he's not complete without her. She's like his enforcer somewhat, but at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see where she may break away from him in terms of particular decisions. There's a huge amount of respect and loyalty between those two. Oof.
It's interesting when I saw him like hit him several more times. I was like, "Oh shit, did he kill him there?" Because that seemed pretty excessive.
I wonder if they thought when filming it, one hit isn't convincing enough to have knocked him out. Because to me, I'm just like, one hit's fine. You don't need to hit him 3 times.
Yeah,
oh, shit,
that's when you get into brain damage territory.
Yeah, Nathan Fillion's going to be in James Gunn's DC World, I think.
Oh, that's good at least.
I forget who he's playing, but of course he turned up in the Suicide Squad. If you remember, he was the guy who could attach his arms.
Oh yeah,
he just died. Like,
yeah. Did they not start shooting the arms? And he's like, ah!
Yeah, and he was like, ah.
I mean, yeah, like because I'm not super familiar with his work. Like outside of this, did he do much?
Also,
20 years ago.
Funnily enough, he's actually a villain in the 7th season of Buffy. I quite like him in that as well. He did Castle, which would be, I think, what a lot of people know him for. He popped up in Halo a couple of times, I think. He was in the Destiny games. He's done a lot of voice work. I think, thanks to Firefly and a bunch of other things, he's just seen as someone who's really cool to have on your project because you know what you're sort of buying, but that he's still not. It's kind of funny to think about. He probably deserves a role where he can sort of be seen by the whole world as good as he actually is. He's a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he's got such fond memories of this role because it's a chance for him to really show what he can do. And he's the main character, and he's quite cool, playing a cool role.
Well, and something I think that is captured very well by him, and you'll certainly see it going forward, that they seem to have forgotten. He's seen as one of the like more badass, cool like characters that everyone gets behind. He gets beaten the fuck out, shot, and like stabbed and slashed throughout this whole series.
Yeah, someone just knifes him in episode 2, which is great.
It's the kind of shit where you're just like, you understand, it's watching him deal with all of that shit. Like, 'cause I really like the fact that both he and Zoe get shot in this shootout.
Yeah, right enough. Yeah, she's got a bulletproof vest, doesn't she?
Yeah, and I think they're evoking a sort of more futuristic one, but at the same time, you would expect they would probably be wearing something like that. And I think it would make sense that she has it and possibly him more so than people like this because they fought in the war, so they probably had access to some of it.
Yeah, did they like flash back a little bit with that?
With what? Sorry.
With the when you're seeing from Jane's point of view through the sniper scope, they like jump backwards a little bit in time to him like thrown over the brick of
No,
food.
he threw back the money.
Ah, okay, that's fine.
Because she said, if I can do a deal without losing money, then I will. And then he said, okay, you've got the money, so you don't have to
Right.
kill us. But she,
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they're playing with our emotions a little bit as well, because after getting a shot, they then cut to her husband saying he doesn't like her going out on deals.
Yeah.
And again, I don't understand like the notion that this isn't an engaging episode. The deal's gone awry, their prisoner has escaped, and then Wash finds out the Reavers are on the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, what more do you want? Like, in between setting up all this world building, all the characters and everything, like, good lord. And this is the thing, like, when there's good dialogue, good characters, good writing, good directing, like, I'm pretty willing to, like, put up with, like, it taking a bit longer because it's a fun world to be part of in the first place.
Yeah. Got him. And yeah, it almost feels like a characteristic of Mal's that whenever someone tries to sort of like say shit about him, talk shit about him when he's holding a gun, he'll just do one shot and it'll be perfect.
Yeah. that was good.
And yeah, I think a lot of people will be like, you killed the horse? Like, yeah, fucking killed the horse. Of course he killed the horse. And I get paid. Yeah, Jane's pretty calm most of the time. Just looking at that expression, he's very scared. I kind of, by the way, we don't get much of this guy, but I really hate him. His switching between hyper aggressive, cop man to listen, I'm here to help. I'm a friend.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a good man. Like,
I mean, he'll say anything to keep himself alive, I guess. Oh, if I
you
fucked
would
up their
kill a
ship is as
lawman.
well.
Yeah.
It's like barely
I love the
together.
smog that comes out the back. It just makes it feel so much more evil.
Yeah, an evil ship. Yeah, might as well like bring the horses in as well. Yeah, it's proper cowboy routine.
Yeah.
Great. They made sure to shoot at the golden hour as well, like just after sunset when like the light's just amazing.
He's like, God damn it.
I love what Mal does here. Just walks straight in.
It's probably the favorite bit from the whole episode. It's so fucking good. And the fact that you get those reactions of people who wouldn't approve, but at the same time, okay, I get it, you know?
Yeah.
Enough.
And they even take the time to throw his body overboard before they leave.
Well, yeah, and Jane is the character that's the most happy and excited about this series of results. It's just like, yep, that's what we should have done in the first place.
And off you go.
Were you surprised by that first time you saw it? Or?
Slightly, yeah. But then I was like, yeah, this is totally in keeping with what we know about Mal. So, yeah, it's a great little scene for him just to look cool as fuck.
And yeah, I think one of the things that was missing up to this point was giving Wash more. He gets to show off why he's here.
He's just like pilot guy, I suppose. He's just there to call out threats and stuff.
Well, yeah, what I guess I mean is that they haven't yet given us much context for why he's valuable as a pilot, as opposed to he's our pilot.
Yeah.
But like he does a move here that's considered difficult.
He's got like crazy Ivan going on.
Yeah, did you appreciate that?
I did, yeah. Well, as a fan of Hunt for Red October, I always like to say Crazy Ivan. It's a totally different context in submarine terms, but I don't mind.
Oh, yeah, it's probably just colloquial, right?
Yeah, well,
in universe for them.
Yeah. Yeah, because for submarines, it's like you can't detect anyone who's following you directly in your wake because like the churn of your propellers means that like your sonar doesn't work there. So Russian captains every so often would just stop and turn sharply one way or another so they could detect if someone was following them. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, the only thing you can do is like shut your engines down and just hope that you don't drift right into them. So they call it Crazy Ivan because it's such a weird thing for someone to do.
Well, yeah, and I think the spirit is here, right? They're going to 180-degree flip because their ship is capable of doing that somewhat, at least compared to the Reavers, and then they're going to run up to them and pass right under them so that it's even more difficult for them to flip and follow them.
Yeah,
it's a crazy move.
Backwash as well, like from their engines.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's what I think is like it's a cool move to see them do, and a suitable way to sort of end the tension of this whole adventure, this first one anyway.
I think the only thing I would have suggested here is maybe make her be a bit more urgent about this because it's like you need to make this happen immediately. Your lives are at stake.
That's true. Obviously, she's a little bit out of it, right? Because of the wound.
I did like when he opens up that panel there. It's just this massive maze of like cables, and he's like, "Oh, fuck's sake." It's a neat move.
Just getting everybody to participate somewhat.
Yeah, it was like an undiscovered country, when Spock and McCoy have to like do surgery on a torpedo while the rest of the crew are trying to keep the ship hanging together.
Yeah, it's always really satisfying the more you can make it feel like a team effort, I think. And yeah, at this point, the pitch of the show is just you want to see these characters go through random adventures.
Yeah, they've accomplished everything they would need to do for a pilot like this. Now we know everyone who's involved. We know what they can do. We know roughly what they believe in, what they represent, and we know a fair bit about the world that they live in.
And we've already been given a good example of ways they will clash as a promise of what you can get for the future of this. And their job is highly stressful. It's kind of what I mean about because me and Gary have talked about it. I just don't see this show not being successful if enough people see it. Like, why wouldn't this feels like the kind of thing that would work for a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to to dislike. I suppose like it's got all the elements that you would look for in a good fun show.
I think that's why it's the meme of it's whenever you see a post, thread, a forum, whatever of, hey, what TV show do you think was canceled early? Don't say Firefly, because that's what everyone says. Not to say there aren't plenty of TV shows that were canceled too early. It's just that this one is almost the poster child for that.
Yeah, the idea that only got one season.
And it's not even a full season in the sense, right? Like it's 14 episodes. At least not full for its time.
Yeah. Back then it was like 22 episode seasons, wasn't it?
What's funny, of course, is 14 is actually a lot for
today.
Yeah, where you get 6 episodes that are half an hour each.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's neat that it came from her as well. As like you got some challenges to face here, and don't shy away from them. People here need help, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to know where they go with this character, what she really is, and what she can do. Because
that is one of the 80% rather than 20%. So you'll be getting a lot more on here.
Oh, okay. Because she kind of alternates between like very like intelligent sort of techno jargon, like clearly understands ships, engineering, physics, science, all that stuff. But then like she seems to then lapse into like almost having the mind of a small child, like very simplistic sort of dialogue. Kind of
varying
done to her.
Varying levels of lucidity, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, is there a slight implication there that he might have like allowed him to escape so that they could then kill him?
I think it's fair to say there's no way we could know for sure. It could have been like a compromise. And yeah, like everyone's attitudes towards everyone else is a little bit different. And instead of it all just being a bland standard, because you could tell even Mal probably does have a better character assessment of someone like Simon, despite the fact that he's new and he's gotten him in trouble, than Jane. Because I really appreciate this scene. It's Mal basically being like, yeah, despite the fact that we kind of were at each other's throats this whole episode, I guess you can stay.
I mean, there's as he says there's a utility to having him on board as well. It's like, having a guy who can stitch up bullet wounds and save people's lives. Pretty useful in our line of work.
Again, what's so interesting about it is you can tell he said you ain't weak. And what he means by that, of course, is the fact that he was willing to save his sister there at the end with the holding the gun on the guy and the fight they sort of had, but also standing up to Mal. It's like, I don't like that you did that. However, I like that you could do that.
Yeah.
I love this line as well. I had a good day.
Good line.
Well,
It's not
something you'll
much. Well, it's
grasp
enough.
about Firefly if you listen to the lyrics of the intro is that the ultimate sort of value, certainly that's embodied by Mal, is the freedom to choose, the freedom to live the life as you want it.
Yeah, because does he not refer to it as my sky or something?
Yeah, I think it's there's a line of you can like poison the earth and boil the sea, but you can't take the sky from me.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I quite love it, and it's going to be important throughout the show that's what he means by a good day. It's like we've still got freedom, so
Got some gas in the tank,
yeah.
Go where we want. Yeah, so that was the first episode of Firefly, and unless I'm sure it's obvious already based on what we've been saying. It's a fun ride. This show, that first episode, I think, accomplishes a great deal in the time that it's got. Tells us a lot about the characters. It introduces an absolute ton of them, but you don't feel lost with them. And I think everyone does a great job with it. It's a pretty effective way of getting a show like this going, and I like it so far.
I'm glad you do, though. I just had no hesitation in assuming this show will be one for you. It's just everything I know about you. I figure you'll like this a whole bunch.
It's just one of those sad things where, like, I'm coming at this obviously like so far beyond its relevance, I suppose, as a show. It's very much just looking back on what might have been and knowing that it never got that season 2, 3, 4 that it probably deserved. Because it was very much on par, or at least from what I can see so far, it was on par with all those other shows around that same era, like Stargate, like Farscape, deserved as much of a shot as they got, and it feels like it didn't, and that's a real shame.
No, I think so too. And your sentiment is obviously shared by a lot of Firefly fans. We tried to just get to the point of saying, at least we got it, because it would have been so sad if this never even got to have the season it got.
Yeah.
We ended up in that timeline, but it's just good to. This is the fate, I believe, of the good to great media, is that it'll be eternal. We'll always reference it and pass it on to next generations. Ironically, me saying that while I'm younger than you.
You are the next generation.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, Star Trek's OG films will last a hell of a lot longer and already have than JJ's. They come back to the Star Trek fans as they are, consider it much more important. And Firefly has its roots in sci-fi. It has respect. It has reference. People talk about it. People reference it. There are video games. I wish I could remember which one I was thinking of. There was a game recently, I think, that had a set of achievements, and several of them were quotes from Firefly just directly. Because it's like, yeah, we love Firefly. It's like, yeah.
I mean, I think it makes me wonder if, say, there hadn't been that real crop of like pretty successful sci-fi shows around that same time, like if, say, Stargate SG-1 hadn't been a thing back then, would Firefly have done a lot better than it did, just through less saturation, I suppose? It's kind of an.
It's definitely possible. It's probably the whatever the reverse of a perfect storm is, or rather, I guess it is a perfect storm, but it's a bad one.
Yeah, an imperfect storm.
Yeah, it's just like, unfortunately, all of the things that could go wrong, I guess, did go wrong, except for the quality of the show, which is the sad part.
Yeah, but it's for me watching this, it's a wonderful like little journey back to a different time in filmmaking and TV. And there's something about sci-fi shows of that period, like the late 90s, early 2000s. They've just got this lovely, comforting, almost cozy feel about them. And I just got that immediately with this show. It's like, I feel like I'm I've wrapped myself up in some kind of comfort blanket of entertainment, and I'm just going to have a good fun time with this.
Reminds me of better days.
It really does, yeah. And I get the same vibe from this that, like I say, I got from a lot of those other sci-fi shows from that same era. I guess partly it's the technology, the cinematography and stuff at the time, and I don't know, they had to do more with less, I guess, in terms of the production, the special
I think you're
effects
right.
and stuff. And so you perhaps had to lean a bit more into good character work. And that's what we seem to be getting with this so far. So I'm liking it. And I'm
so wraps our coverage of episode 1 of 14 and a movie.
Indeed, yeah. So join us for our coverage of episode 2, which will be along hopefully in a week or two. But yeah, for now, at least for MauLer and for me, that's all we got for today. So go away now.
Bye.